Hello everybody, Average Game here. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk for Mechwarrior Online. So in this episode, Solaris VII, or 1v1 mode. So I'll be the first one to admit I don't know much about the Solaris VII board game or addition to Battletech. I had to do a lot of Googling, a lot of questioning, a lot of asking and stuff. And basically, to break it all down for everybody, boil it down to the main points. It's basically a 1v1 winner-takes-all gladiatorial match. Solaris VII itself was the primary place for these fights. Now, the fights did take place on other planets, at other coliseums, and other places, but Solaris VII was it. It was the big time. It was the major league of its day. Think of the best sports, wherever those sports and those specific teams are located. So we're talking baseball, the United States, hockey, Canada, soccer. I'm gonna say England and Spain and Portugal. I'm not too up when it comes to soccer. Tennis, mostly Europe. Cricket, I want to say mostly I know South Africa and India and things like that. So that's a little bit more spread out, but wherever a sport is centralized, it's usually, it's played everywhere else, but that's where usually the cream rises to the top, so to speak. In this case, it's Solaris VII for the gladiatorial fights. So, a la the gladiatorial fights in ancient Rome, which is pretty much what Battletech is based off of. If you actually listen to Jordan Wiseman talk about the Battletech universe, one of his main draws upon when doing some of these things back in the day was the successor states to the Roman Empire and the falling of the Empire, and some of the things that they still did because of the Empire. One of these things, gladiatorial fights. So, Solaris VII. Now, Solaris VII itself is broken up into 5 different regions. Well, technically 6. You have the international zone, so that's basically the transportation hub. That's where the HPG station is and all that stuff. But then you have some major zones. Each one has one specific coliseum in it, or one specific, we'll say, gladiatorial location. So you have the Black Hills location of Solaris VII City. That's for House Davion. They have a thing called the Boreal Reach. It's the quote-unquote the most popular of the 5 open arenas. Then you have Montenegro, which is House Merrick. They have the Factory. Basically, it's an old manufacturing complex. It's all busted up. I believe the Boreal Reach Arena is basically just a large open area. Then you have Kobe, which is House Kurita. They have Ishiyama, which is a man-made mountain that people fight over. So you basically fight on a mountain. Then you have Cathay, which is House Liao. That's an open area known as the Jungle. Basically, it's a pyramidal structure surrounded by the attraction itself of Cathay. Basically, nice open areas with a pyramid in the middle, basically. So maybe you'll think of something like... I'm actually going to get into different maps soon. Then you have Silesia, which is House Steiner, which is home to, obviously, the Steiner Coliseum. Overall, we already have the Steiner Coliseum. I figure the Jungle for House Liao, that's probably going to be more, if you're going pyramid with a jungle, I'm thinking something along the lines of a forest colony, but some sort of monument in the middle and a nice little open area, roughly the size of the Steiner Coliseum. The Kobe, which is the Ishiyama, which is Man-made Mountain, which looks over the river. I'm thinking a hot map, something a la Terra Firma, maybe. So we have that hot map in there, or even maybe, it's on a mountain. Maybe have it near the mountain top, along the mountain. So it's a lot of cliffs and a lot of cold areas because it's up on a mountain. Narrow angles. So if you guys do one-on-one. You have to be on these little ledges and you'll end up sliding down. So if you're jump jets, you can jump up onto the next layer and shoot down type thing. Kind of mountain pass-esque. If you've seen ice things, Dangerous Truckers, where they go to like Tibet and things like that, where they have these mountains that roads that zigzag up and down mountainsides or mountain cliffs. Something along those lines would be kind of cool. For Montenegro, for House Merrick, for the factory, I would like to think of something along the lines of River City, but have the whole place torn down, ripped up, have the water all dyed a really weird looking color, but have it as a huge factory. Like the whole map is just a factory. And have a wall up around the outside of it. That'd be kind of cool. Kind of like the new map they're working on, which is supposed to be apparently a massive city, a la like downtown New York type thing. Is what I was getting at. And then obviously Black Hills, which is Davian, which is Boreal Reach, which is an open class arena. Don't exactly know what that means, but from what I've been told, basically Boreal Reach is kind of like Boreal Vault in Faction Warfare. Basically, it's kind of hilly, lots of trees, something like that. So we're probably looking at a Boreal Reach style map. Lots of hills, trees, steep ridges. Something you got to move around in, use your UAVs, things like that, which are going to be very interesting. So with that in mind, I want to talk about the next thing associated with Solaris, which is going to be the skill system associated with it, or even like the current skill system that we have for Mechwarrior Online is going to be incorporated into the Solaris VII mode as well. So whatever you tweak your skill set to is going to be set for the mech itself. It's not the mode, but the mech. I think that should be changed up a little bit. I think we should have a separate system for a skill tree for Solaris VII. I think it should be both part of and yet standalone when it comes to certain things, because you're going to build mechs differently than you do for quick play and faction warfare than you would in Solaris VII. So I think the skill tree should be more restrictive in Solaris, more specific. So it should have something specifically for pulse lasers, something specifically for large pulse, medium pulse, small pulse, but also have it so that these are also very expensive skills. They have the positives, but they'll also have negatives, meaning, well, something like that. With the new tier system being looked at for the mechs as well, so all mechs are going to be broken down into 7 tiers, which is something I've mentioned before. I'm going to do a video on where I'm just going to say I told you so. But basically every mech is going to be weighted so that you'll have like a very good medium, like over performing medium, go up against some heavies maybe, some poor performing heavies, and vice versa. Have some really good heavies going up against atlases and things like that in assaults. So very interesting. I like the way that that whole system is going to be. How they're going to weigh out the mechs when it comes to a score system or a value system, we'll have to try to figure that out. But they're going to break every mech down into a scale of 1 to 7, whatever it falls into. Whether 7 being, say for example, a Kodiak 3 and 1 being a Locust, or the other way around, which is a Locust is 7 and the Kodiak 3 is 1. I like that. I like the fact that you aren't just locked into one of the 7. You can bounce around, so you can actually have one mech in each of the 7 tiers, which is good. I'm going to assume that you actually get to pick your one of 7 mechs, and you'll just have them when you go to Solaris 7. It'll show you your 7 hangars, and you pick those mechs that you want, and those are your 7 mechs in the hangars. That'd be kind of cool. There's something about the fact that you build up renown, kind of like how you build up reputation for faction warfare, and you unlock bonuses and all that stuff. There's going to be bolt-ons, which they're going to be adding in specifically for Solaris 7, but it'll also be available in the actual game itself. So as you're shooting, as you're fighting, stuff's going to be blowing off and causing mayhem and destruction. I'm actually looking forward to that. Another thing they were mentioning was the fact that you can build up contracts. They said something along the lines of contracts will be giving you bonuses and things like that. That will be interesting. Depending on what the bonus is associated with the contracts, I'm wondering if there's multiple different types of contracts that you can take out that give you different bonuses. Like, for example, a specific ballistics manufacturer offers you a contract that gives your ballistics, some sort of positive yet negative effects. We're looking at probably weapon manufacturers, armor manufacturers. I'm hoping they're just not simple XP or C-bill boosts, but I'm hoping they're actual end game modifications. I have a Razor Synapse update to do. But yeah, so these contracts, I hope they actually have impacts on the weapons, your sensor systems, all that stuff. Like, for example, it gives your ballistics the ability to fire faster. But, there is a drawback to heat or ammo consumption. Well, actually, that would be, if you're firing faster, there's going to be ammo consumption anyways. But, jam chance. Your racks fire at 25% faster rate. They spin up 25% faster. But there's a increase to jam of 2%. Because these are all experimental weapons. They're being tested in the Solaris VII rating, right? So put it there. So even put it out there that there's experimental contracts. Have them timed, where you can sign up to take a contract for experimental rotary autocannons. So for a month, you get bonuses and negatives on your rotary autocannons. Spin up faster, shoot a lot quicker, but the jam possibly higher. After you take on an experimental contract with the company, it unlocks additional contracts with that company. That would be kind of interesting. Right now, they haven't really broke down the way the contract system is going to work, whether it's just a constant permanent contract, like they have in Faction Warfare, or if it's one that, it's like, hey, do us a favor and do X amount of damage with the following type of weapon. We want to see how it, how good it is type thing. It'd be interesting to see. Betting on Solaris VII. So, I am one of those people that sit back and say, if people want to bet on it, fine. If you want to figure out a way to do it, let people do it. But I know for a fact it's not going to happen internally to PGI. The reason for this, too many international players, too many separate laws for each and every single player. So when you think about it, if you were to, how can I put this? In Ontario, you're 18 years old. You can bet. You can gamble. You can drink. When you go, like where I am right now, I go an hour and a half south and cross the border into the United States. I gotta be 21 to do all those things, including vote, I think, too. So right there, it's like, well, how do you gauge what rules to place upon all players? You can't just turn around and say, okay, these are the rules in the United States. They all apply. Because that's unfair to people with less restrictions or more restrictions, right? So it's kind of a situation where really don't know where to go from there, what to do, right? So I don't think they're going to implement any betting sort of that associated with this. Yeah, and that ain't going to happen. Now, mind you, I can see third-party websites popping up. I would be happy to run one of those. One of my plans is to do live streams of constant fights, because they're going to put in a 150-person spectator. They'll show the top 5 matches, and they will you'll be allowed to go in and watch them. So the plan will be to actually YouTube or Twitch these things. The plan is going to be twitching them all the time. We're going to be sitting there talking about it, and watching them and seeing what happens, and talk about plans, maneuvers, build outs, and things like that. So that's going to be interesting to do. With all that in mind, that brings me to the next part, which is rewards. So they haven't really broken down how rewards are going to work with Solaris. Whether they're going to be higher or lower than normal. They've already told everyone that the ranking system for the pilot themselves will be based off of win-loss. And then what bracket they're in, 1 through 7, will be based on the mech itself. So then my question is, okay, does the bracket depend on, depending on your bracket, does that affect how much money you make? Depending on, your win-loss, does that impact how much money you make? Depending on what your reputation is there a multiplier to how much C-bills you make? Like, lots of questions, not many answers as of yet. They're not looking at anything until, I think, like, sometime mid-next year or so. That's no big deal. But other than that, I'm excited for this. With the bolt-on system, with the new loot system coming in that's going to be worked out, which we're going to have another Let's Talk on. We're going to definitely look at seeing what's happened and what's going to happen. What the big thing is going to be. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time. See you in the battlefield. Bye-bye.